Welcome back to my channel. I'm Traven, and in today's video we're talking about Destroy All Humans, They Can't Be Regenerated, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, and about a half dozen other related properties. What do they all have in common? Let's talk about it. We're going to be talking about Destroy All Humans, They Can't Be Regenerated, and why I would argue that it is the best Magic the Gathering focused manga ever made, but it is not the first Magic the Gathering manga ever made. And so I thought it would be fun to look at the history of Magic manga and trading card game manga and talk about how all these different properties interweave in very interesting ways. If you're like me and a 90s kid, undoubtedly you remember Pokemania, the Pokemon craze that swept the nation in the mid to late 90s and then quickly died out, I think, early 2000s. Now, Pokemon's still around and the games are still around, but that was really the peak of its initial burst of popularity. And at the time, Wizards of the Coast had the rights to the Pokemon trading card game. But just like with all of the Pokemon media at the time, in the late 90s, interest was waning in the Pokemon game. One of the lead designers at the time was Mike Elliott, and he was overseeing a lot of the localization of the Pokemon trading card game. He really disliked the prize system in Pokemon when you attack your opponent and you successfully knock out one of their Pokemon, you get a prize card. He felt like this was a win-more mechanic. Mike Elliott and Wizards of the Coast wanted more control over the direction that the Pokemon trading card game was going. They often butted heads with Media Factory and wanted to design cards in a different way. They didn't like the direction that the game was going in Japan. Also at this time, Nintendo of America had just been established and it was buying up all of the licensing rights that they had loaned out to these other companies. Seeing the waning popularity of Pokemon and the writing on the wall that soon they would lose the license, but also acknowledging that there was a space within the trading card game scene for something aimed at younger audiences, Wizards of the Coast started working on their own separate game that would take the different concepts within Magic the Gathering, which is a very complex game, make it a little bit simpler for younger players. The name they eventually landed on was Duel Masters, which some have speculated was an early name for Magic itself. Meanwhile, over in Japan, a Duel Masters manga was being released as early as 1999, and this was based on Magic the Gathering. This was the first Magic the Gathering centered manga. I actually remember being in middle school and being in both the anime and the card game fandoms and hearing about there being this manga being developed for Magic the Gathering, which was very cool. But once the ball got rolling at Wizards of the Coast on this new trading card game, they approached their Japanese partners and suggested that the Duel Masters manga shift its focus from Magic the Gathering to the Duel Masters game that they were working on. You might find it weird that a manga aimed at one idea or one trading card game would suddenly shift focus to another one, but this isn't the first time it's happened. It's not even the first time it happened with a trading card game centered manga. Early Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not about the Duel Monsters trading card game. It is honestly wild what happens in these first couple of volumes, and you can pick this up, or you could pick this up stateside and read the first few issues or so and see Yugi as more of a dark antagonist figure who goes around doling out punishment games to bullies at his school. Things like a dice game where Yugi impossibly rolls a 7 off of a single die and then makes the person that he's fighting have a mosaic over his eyes. It's terrifying. But a few years into this production, which began, I believe, in 1996, so predates Duel Masters only by a couple of years, Yu-Gi-Oh! Also shifted focus into a new card game. You can't read any of the original Duel Masters manga in America. You have to go find sites that have scanned the early copies to see this vision of Magic the Gathering as a comic book. By the time it got stateside, the media was already firmly established as that of this new card game. You can find old copies of both the manga Duel Masters and the animanga, both of which tell a very similar story where the cards are coming to life. The animanga, if you don't recall what this kind of media was, is basically just screen captures of the anime series put into like sequential order. I do not miss these. But it is honestly, I've read both of these, and it's honestly the better read. So if for some masochistic reason you want to go and read this old Duel Masters manga, I do actually recommend the Animanga series. That lead designer, Mike Elliott, by the way, is still around and making board games. Among other notable titles, he made the Harry Potter trading card game, the Neopets trading card game. He's had his hand in HeroClix. He also designed Dice Masters, as well as Shadowrun Crossfire and Dragonfire. So yeah, he's still around making games. His big contribution to the Duel Masters formula was taking the prize system in Pokemon and inverting it into a shield system in Duel Masters, where when you attack your opponent, they get a benefit. So it's not a wins more mechanic. He liked the mechanism. He just felt like it wasn't serving a good purpose. It was just helping someone who was already ahead get further ahead. There is another very brief manga of sorts created by Wizards of the Coast for the set Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, which takes place in this kind of cyberpunk future Japan. There was a one-shot online manga explaining the story behind that particular set. I hesitate to really call this manga. It was an in-house artist that was doing the art, and it is just a one chapter thing. But if you want to be technical, then Destroy All Humans, They Can't Be Regenerated is actually the third Magic the Gathering manga created, but by far the best. Destroy All Humans, They Can't Be Regenerated follows Hajime Kano, a Japanese middle school student in the 90s, man. Hajime is an incredibly smart student and also one who is a prolific player of Magic the Gathering. His academic rival, Emmy, is also secretly a Magic the Gathering player, although her family does not know about this. They put grades first, and part of the appeal here is that Hajime has to keep her playing this game a secret as they kind of run around clandestinely playing the game and going to card shops. They start developing a relationship with each other. On the surface, this is a fairly by the numbers middle school Japanese romance comic. It's very cute, and it plays hard into nostalgia. Thankfully, there is no story where Magic the Gathering is real, or we are, falling into the Magic the Gathering world or anything like that. But we do play around with the imagery of that type of comic, like a Yu-Gi-Oh!, where characters will play a card down and it will have the kind of mindscape of what is that card impacting that particular fight look like. So they get to kind of have their cake and eat it too, where they are appealing to maybe a slightly older audience. And definitely an older audience if you are picking this up for the nostalgic reasons, but still have that fun of, okay, yeah, we know that part of what you enjoy about this line of comics is that, like, games come to life aspect of it. What's really interesting about this is that you're seeing it from the perspective of Magic the Gathering's release in Japan. And so you're seeing a lot of not only the developing strategies that came out of the early sets, which for me is of course very nostalgic, but also gaining some insight into some aspects of Magic the Gathering history and Magic the Gathering lore that I was not familiar with. Things such as the Shichi Fukukujin Dragon, which is mentioned in Volume 2 as a one-of card that was in the Japanese DCI headquarters in Japan. An incredibly rare, but honestly at this point not very useful card. I had no idea it existed until I read this book. And if nostalgia or a cute 90s romance is not enough to entice you to pick up this book, there are also promo cards in every issue of the manga of some Magic the Gathering card that features prominently in that issue being reissued in foil, which I thought was pretty cool. So is Destroy All Humans, They Can't Be Regenerated the best comic ever? No. But if you are someone who is a fan of Magic the Gathering, if you are someone who has fondness for that 90s nostalgia, or if you just want to see a cute story where nerds fall in love, I think you can do a lot worse. And since the comic takes place in the 90s in Japan, they have the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever and actually reference the creation of Duel Masters and its shift in focus from Magic the Gathering to the new game in the comic itself, and that would just be so funny. If you are a fan of Magic the Gathering, if you are into nerd love, I would urge you to go pick out this book and just give it a shot. I gave it 4 out of 5. Of course, that's getting a little bit of a nostalgia bump for me, but it really is the best Magic the Gathering comic that's ever been made. And that's going to do it for me today. As always, thanks for stopping by. I hope your reading journey is going well. I hope you are passionately diving into the things that you are reading. As always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe so we can grow this corner of our BookTube community. And until the next one, take care.
Just a brief little jaunt into every card game imaginable.